Yeah, can you hear us? Okay, I'd like to call to order the Conservation Advisory Council for the town of Niskayuna. This is the June 4th, 2025 meeting. Laura, could you please call the roll?
Okay. So, oh, can you guys move down? There's a chair. You can pull it up for Joy. So, Chelsea and Georgia both told me that they couldn't come to the meeting tonight, but in the room we have Ashok Ramasubramanian, Joy Wang is joining us, Ellen Daviero, Dan McPherson, Chuck Petrowski, Simran Uturkar, and Chairman Dart Shayer.
Okay, great, thank you. So before we get started, I would just like to say we have a student rep that has worked with us for 3 years. And I have to say, I really appreciated your effort here and being part of it. And I hope that, I know you're going off, but I hope at some time, your time here inspires you to work on a committee somewhere and help make your community a better place to live. And I really appreciate, on behalf of the committee, we'd like to thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you everybody. I wanted to thank everybody as well, because I know when I first joined, like it was like a new language, whatever was going on in the CAC. I didn't understand the land developments and things like that, but everybody was very welcoming, and I felt like, even when I could, my perspective was heard. And I learned a lot of different things about like the conservation and like preservation projects that our town is doing, and like climate smart things. And I was actually able to get involved in some of those things by interning for Laura. And I hope that I can like take like the skills that I learned and like the values that I gained as being a part of the CAC, and I hope to like join environmental groups in college and continue. So that's been really valuable. So thank you all very much for the opportunity.
Thank you again.
Simran, I think you stayed with us the longest of any student representative, and you did the most work, I would say. We had a couple really good ones in Complete Streets too, but helping us with the checklists and always coming and always being remembering to tell me if you couldn't come, that is a skill that is underrated and very appreciated. And I really, really enjoyed having you here. You've been very special to
Oh,
me.
thank you.
So.
Okay. All right, we have several minutes. So why don't we go through them? First minute is January 8th, 2025. Does anybody have any comments that they would like to change in those minutes?
So the January ones were actually deferred from action on February because we needed to make a couple adjustments to them and attach the recommendation on the short-term rentals to the town board. So those adjustments were made, but we couldn't actually vote on them, Ellen, if you remember, because you recused yourself. Yeah.
So I would like to make a motion to adopt the minutes as written. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, yeah, that's fine. We adopt the minutes, and Ellen has abstained. Okay, the next group of minutes we have is February 5th. Okay. Okay. Any other comments people have? Okay, would somebody like to make a motion to adopt the minutes?
I'll make a motion to adopt.
Okay, anybody want to second it?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
I have to abstain because I was not present in that meeting.
Okay. Hearing anybody opposed? Hearing none, the minutes are adopted as written. Okay, March 5th. minutes.
If someone's speaking, we're not picking it up on the microphone. Oh, sorry, Ellen.
My apologies.
So just line 65 is just grammatical. And then I also noticed in line 241, I believe that was Ashok who was making those comments about the Schenectady County Environmental Advisory Council adopted a binding resolution to eliminate pesticide use on the county properties. I think so.
It's been a show, but that was new.
Yeah, it says, yeah, so it says Mr. Deere report, but I believe that that was. Yeah.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, does somebody want to make a motion?
Make a motion to accept the minutes.
Okay, I'll second that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions? Any opposed? Hearing none, the minutes are adopted with the correction that Ellen pointed out. Okay, May 7th. Does anyone have any
April.
corrections or
Oh, May.
May?
It should be April.
No, because we actually voted on the April.
Oh,
and
okay.
May. We just had the-
Sorry. I can't read. I thought there was another error in here, but I thought it was just grammatical. I think it's line 216. I think it's just missing a period. That's all.
Yeah. And that's the project.
It's just proof that I actually read them.
Is this a copy of May's or is it just the
No, this
headers?
is today's agenda.
Okay. It says May.
Okay, any other comments?
Grammar
Chuck?
mistake. Line 42. Miss Berry said her husband.
Okay, any other comments? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to adopt the minutes.
Motion to adopt?
Okay, second?
Again, second.
Okay, all in favor of adopting the minutes, say aye. Any abstentions?
Yes, Petrowski was absent, attending a
Okay.
music concert at the high school for the kids, by the kids, for the parents, for the record.
Okay, any opposed? Okay, hearing none, the minutes are adopted with the corrections. Okay, Laura, do we have anybody online that would like to address the council?
We do not.
Okay. All right, then we can move to the EAFs. And number 1 and 2 are interrelated. So the first EAF 2025-05 is 39 State Street. It's the Kia Matthews building addition and parking lot extension. And the second one, EAF 2025-06, is the lot adjustment between lots on Fagan Avenue 25 and 33. And there's a variance that's being requested there. So we talked about this at the last meeting. We don't have to make a decision at this meeting. We'll have to make a decision on the July meeting. I'm open to have discussion on both these together, either one separately. I think they're sort of linked together. So
And if it helps, we don't have to do the we don't actually have to do the findings, but we could talk about the questions sometimes.
yep, I
Up
think
to
that
you guys.
Yeah, yeah, and as you may recollect, this project came before the committee 2 years ago, roughly. And the parking lot was much larger. They were taking down multiple houses, and this council recommended a positive declaration, which means we thought that the project would have or may have a impact on the character of the neighborhood, and we had several other reasons why as well, and they're captured in the minutes.
Yeah, but for those who weren't here
Yeah,
last
Laura, why don't
meeting,
we go through?
and because the applicant wasn't able to come tonight, so a little hard to see when it's black and white on there. I'll go to the green one. Yeah, this is just the existing conditions as it currently stands right now, and this is the best way to see the single family home right there and the single family home right there. Hard to see on my screen. Here's the kind of green one that's easier to see on the screen. This proposal is to expand the Kia, Matthews Kia Automotive Dealership. Building is currently not in compliance with the Matthews standards for a car dealership. They need more service bays and they want to upgrade the facade. So this hatched out area, here, in the back, they'd be adding more service bays, and here they would be enclosing where the people drive up and drop their cars off, make it a little nicer in the weather. And then over here, you can see they would be upgrading the facade, which is in some of the renderings later. This does impact their existing parking by adding the addition to the building. They are removing these parking spaces. The site is considered right now to be pretty underparked. When you go there, there's a lot of cars everywhere. So they're proposing to add the parking lot over here. Can't see it too well. There's these little red lines, which you might be able to see better on your computer. But the existing single-family building is still one proposed to be torn down that's sitting on the parcel right about here. And then their initial proposal was to bring the lot line of the this single-family home, which had been originally proposed to be demolished. They're now proposing to save that, bring the lot line closer to that house, and add a bigger parking lot expansion. So some of the things in your packet to note are on this drawing, they're showing some landscaping improvements on the south side of Fagan Ave to help with the aesthetics of that right of way. This South Fagan Ave right of way, and I couldn't tell you why. It is 100 feet wide. It's 100-foot right of way. I think Balltown Road is 80, just to give you a sense. Like, it's an extremely, extremely wide right of way. They are showing with this kind of path, this like kind of bumping out circular path. This is where they would direct the 18-wheelers that bring the cars to offload in their site. So they are proposing an offload area here, and they're showing that the 18-wheelers can get in and turn around with the pavement improvements that they would propose to be adding. And this drawing in particular is a change. They did note that they would like the CAC to look at that and give the comments to the planning board from the original one that I showed you. This proposes to keep the lot for the existing single-family home at 80 feet, which is compliant with the zoning. It reduces some of the parking lot over here behind the single-family homes. And what it does do, which dealerships do kind of do, I don't know why it won't let me draw my box. There it is double up the parking. So this isn't like normal parking for regular people coming and going. This is the parking that like employees would use to store cars. So they would be the ones moving the cars around. And so you have this double parking, which actually I think you can see quite nicely over here. It would look like this. well, they do this on, this is their repurposing. So they're the ones moving the cars around. So they are, that way they can push some of the parking spots towards State Street and make that space for the single family home bigger. So that's something that they were looking for comments on. And I can't remember if you guys saw this map before. It was requested by you and the planning board. This is a map of State Street. Balltown Road's coming in here. This is like way over by the gun shop and Graham's Coffee Parlor. And this is, you know, way over at the end, which is like Griffin Motorsports and stuff like that. So the blue is the commercial land use along State Street. The pink and purple are single family, and the green is vacant. For some reason, the reconditioning facility next to here came up as vacant. That's something having to do with the assessor's classification. But the idea was to see how the commercial works along State Street. And because one of the comments that we've seen before is like, is this project dipping like too far into the residential? Because it's a commercial expansion down South Fagan. One of the things that we talked about. If you zoom in on this on your computers, you can see the individual lines. So 17 is the single family home that comes down in either plan, 25 is the vacant lot, and 33 is the single family home that they're now proposing to save. The red is the entirety of the parcel. They're actually, because they're saving 33, they're shrinking it back to somewhere around that green area. But that gives you a sense of how it compares to commercial and residential along State Street. Then this was what they were looking at, what they would lose if they kept the lot at 80 feet and kept the parking not doubled up. They lose a fair amount of parking spaces, 37, I guess. And then this is the interior structure of the building. That's what the facade I'm sorry, it does not want me to draw my box. The facade improvements that are shown on the front. Here's the covered service bay over here. And I think it's just the inside. And then they've got the EAF attached there. Yeah, we're sort of discussing them both at the same time. And then the lot line adjustment maps all the way at the end there. And you can see the line being proposed to be moved closer to the house, unless they consider that plan that they wanted feedback on for doubling up on the parking.
Laura, I have a question for clarification.
Mhm.
Going back to the map that shows the current uses, do we have an idea where the commercial highway and the residential line is on that lot?
Oh,
Does
you
it
mean like,
coincide with 25, or is that just this?
it's pretty close to 25, but I think if I look at that, I can actually tell you.
It says that the lot is partially on both.
Yeah, it is. Because this, the current lot, I think, is 100 feet. And they're proposing to shrink. So it would be 20 feet past that green line there
With the 50, with the 50.
with the
foot-
80.
Oh, with the 80.
Yeah, with the 50 foot, it's, Clark, make sure I'm doing the math right here.
Yeah.
It's, it's 50 feet past the green line. Yeah.
Yeah, I think to answer Dart, well, I think Dart was asking exactly where the commercial highway zoning changes, which I'm not exactly sure of.
Oh,
But that lot at 33 South Fagan Ave, like Laura said, is currently 100 feet wide. So, and what they're proposing now at the end of the project, it would be 80 feet wide. So the lot 25 there would stretch down 20 feet into 33 South Fagan.
It's probably somewhere in here. Somewhere probably close to the end of the line there for 34. Probably come back. So it does help a little.
Is that blue triangle below 41 a different business on the street?
Yeah, that's
Like Albany Street?
actually, the business building is in the town of Colony, but the rear yard is in the town of Niskayuna. So it is, this data comes from the assessor, but yeah, it's classified as commercial. The store itself is in the town of Colony. Yeah, so it is kind of a funny road. That parcel there that's blue, is basically on the corner. And so you have the Kia on State Street, then you had the three single family homes, then you have a business, and then you have Albany Street.
But that business that's next to 41 is not if I remember correctly, I don't remember it being, as busy as a
Yeah,
dealership.
I'm not sure what that business is because it's not in our town, but no, it seems to be more like a contractor office or something. Yeah. It's not retail that I know of.
I'm
Laura,
sure-
could you get to the parking layout again, the latest parking layout?
For sure. This one?
Yeah. So just to recap what Laura said, I think the main changes since the CAC saw the last site plan, the planning board pushed back on them pretty hard. There's still some debate among the planning board regarding removal, knocking down one single family home to expand into that area. The planning board and the architectural review board liked the idea of pushing all the parking up towards State Street because that's a more commercial area. So like Laura mentioned, that's why they doubled up the parking parallel to South Fagan and right in the middle of the lot there too. They tried to push their parking up, and then Laura suggested and worked with them to keep the 33 South Fagan lot code compliant, 80 feet of frontage. So this plan wouldn't need the ZBA, but it still would be knocking down a single family home for the parking lot. But I think they've also added a stockade fence, and the planning board pushed them to do more buffering between the parking lot as it's deeper into South Fagan Ave, have more buffering between the parking lot and the residential lot at 33 South Fagan Ave. So this is kind of their latest proposal with a little bit more landscaping and tree planting like Laura had mentioned. But this is kind of in response to what the planning board was requesting of them.
So what I would suggest, this is a really complex project. What I would suggest is, without discussing the merits of whether the parking lot should be there or not, what I would suggest is, why don't we first talk about the second EAF, which is the lot line adjustment, and how we feel about potentially, right now, currently before the town is a 50 lot width, a lot width of 50 feet. To be compliant needs to be 80 feet. And they're going before the ZBA potentially to seek relief on that. So I don't know if anybody has any comments or anything on that part of the project, only that part.
Not a comment, but I have a clarification question, please. So the ZBA's meeting is on July 16th, and our meeting is before the ZBA's meeting.
Yeah, we don't have to make a.
We don't have to make a
recommendation.
decision. I just want to have a discussion on this, just.
No, but our July meeting is going to be before July 16th.
Right.
Right.
So we don't need to decide on this even in the July meeting?
No, we would.
We would.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, yeah, that's where I am, my doubt, if you will, comes through. So, I mean, there are two pieces, right? Like our recommendation and the ZBA's decision, like does one depend on the other, or they're completely independent things?
We can make our opinion of the impact of the area known to the ZBA. We do, the ZBA makes an independent decision based on the facts, but as you recall, with the Pierce project, it was a very similar situation where there was a subdivision proposed for a lot, and each lot would be 90 feet wide, which would be less than the 100 required for each of those lots. So we did provide a opinion for that particular project.
Yeah.
Thank you.
This one, it is two separate actions. It needs two separate secret determinations. The actions have two different timelines. So you would need to do a secret determination to the zoning board on the lot line adjustment at your July meeting. You'd still have the ability to, see if you can work through alternatives for the environmental impacts that you've identified on the special use permit and site plan. The lot line adjustment it's related because they're not proposing to keep, I'm getting the 33 South Fagan 100 feet wide. The reason they want to shrink it down is so that they have more room for their parking. If they just left 33 South Fagan Ave exactly as it is, then you wouldn't need the lot line adjustment whatsoever. They'd really just be talking about 3 lots. But they are talking about 4, and they were trying to push the line as close to the existing single-family building as they possibly could to get more parking. So they did come up with that proposal that pushes that line back towards State Street a little, that leaves 80 feet instead of 50. So they pushed it 30 feet back. And doubled up on the parking. Because when they pushed it 30 feet back and didn't double up on the parking, that's what I've shown you. They showed they lost something like 22 or 37 spaces or something like that.
So just to clarify, their variance is still off. They're still asking for a variance for that lot.
If they went with the newest proposal that they would like feedback on, which is the doubling up the parking and leaving 33 South Fagan at 80 feet, they would not need any variances.
But-
80 feet is the minimum.
Yeah, the proposal.
I think,
though,
like-
is
Oh, go ahead.
50 feet.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Clark.
Well, I think, like Dart said, but the actual application that's in front of us is the 50 feet, right? Even though their latest site plan would leave 33 South Fagan at 80 feet.
I guess my comment is just this, is that I feel that, we can do better to create parking spots without sacrificing residential land.
Could you expand on that a little bit, Ellen?
Well,
Let me ask you for clarification. Are you saying,
I mean, in cities, when you go to
Yeah.
dealerships, they use multiple, they don't have the ability to buy land and just plow over it. I mean, or to be able to do this. So they own one spot already. So in the area that they have and that they've purchased, that they can, there are structures that you can use in order to be able to, do elevated, maybe parking garage or something.
they already, yeah, I hear what you're saying.
But-
They already own the land? They
I'm-
currently own the land, okay.
Right? They bought that land, right?
Yeah, they are the owner of 33, 25, and 17.
So,
I'm just asking these questions just for clarification, so we all know.
so I just think that would be, I'm against the variance for that one. If we're doing it one by one, the variance of the 30 feet based on what they have here, I'm against that extra space, that variance in order for the parking spaces.
But I also think that this project, both pieces together, or even if they're separate, considered separately, inherently change the character of the neighborhood. They're literally paving over a neighborhood for a parking lot. And that's the core of the issue here, whether this business needs the space or not, or how they can creatively manage their inventory is not really for this board to contemplate. The point is they're changing the character of what was significantly changing the character of a neighborhood. Whether they bought the land, whether they own land or not, that's what they're doing. Or I know they own it, but that's what they're doing. And I think that's the purview of this board, is to look at this situation based upon that. And maybe we've done that in the past. but I'm not seeing all I'm seeing is the expansion of a business into a neighborhood that's going to leave one house on an island, which is just going to at some point disappear as well. And that whole, the folks on the other side will have in their backyard a, hopefully thriving and successful business that is just simply moving vehicles with exhaust noise, et cetera, et cetera. So it does, inherently destroy the character of that neighborhood. And that's what concerns me.
When I think that's very similar findings, two packets ago or your last packet, I
Yeah.
put your old findings in there. I don't think they're in this packet. This time we could go back to them. But I think that's very similar to the findings that you guys found before. The only other point I did want to add, which we did put on the floor before, is, and unfortunately, I mean, I don't necessarily agree with the zoning lines are drawn, but on the map, they are drawn so that these single family homes are within the commercial highway zoning district. Because this expansion is a special use permit, it has that higher level of review, but it is possible as of right that, we said this before, a non-special use permit use like a retail store could actually go in and demolish that home and set up its own parking lot with its own entry and exit. It would be a building though. It wouldn't just be like a pushed out parking lot. And obviously we don't have a proposal for that. It may not make sense for there at all. But the underlying zoning, I think in this particular case, is a little unfortunate in that it is commercial highway.
The 25, the lot line runs through, the zoning line runs through 25 line.
The zoning line runs through 33, and it's
Only
only a
33, okay.
tiny, tiny piece in the backyard of 33. So both of the single-family homes are squarely within the commercial highway zone. They are pre-existing. They're affordable housing, which we found before. Actually, I learned this when I was making the map. 17 South Bacon Ave is actually a two-family. So, those are kind of rare in Niskayuna. And although they are pre-existing non-conforming, they are part of a neighborhood and they are serving a purpose. I'm just acknowledging that the underlying zoning, for those single-family homes is something that the town should look at.
Understood. Thank you.
I have two kind of general questions being newer to this. When there's a multi-part proposal like this one, is it kind of an all or nothing? In other words, if we, for example, were okay with expanding the service bay, the facade, covering up the entrance, and said, okay, you can do that, but you're losing your 30 spots, but we're not good with any of the back stuff, the parking lot. Can we recommend that? Or is it like you take the proposal as is?
You can recommend that because this board doesn't actually approve or disapprove the proposal. You can say that the whole proposal has too many environmental impacts. Then you'd have to focus in on what the environmental impacts are to the parking lot specifically. And then in your notes to the planning board, you can say you don't see necessarily environmental impacts from the expansion of the service bays.
Mm-hmm.
You're really seeing those negative consequences to the neighborhood from the parking lot. You can parse that out. In the end, the planning board can modify the proposal, but they typically act on what they try to get the applicant to propose something that they can act upon in whole. They can, as a board, the planning board can say yes to the expansion and no to the parking lot, but they try to act on what the applicant is asking
Actually,
for.
I think the way we would have to do it, if this is what the board ultimately decided to do, was to give the whole project a positive deck, meaning there may be an environmental impact to the community, but then in our statement, point out that it was the parking lot. If the board decided it was the parking lot that triggered that. But I think we got hung up once before giving a conditional,
Oh yeah, we can't do that.
no, we can't do the condition. I just wanted to be clear here. When I look at this, and I'm only going to look at the lot line adjustments. Okay, and I'm not making any opinion on the project itself. But I do believe that it is in the town's interest to maintain a legal lot there, because it would set a precedence, and we just did this over on Pierce Road where someone went in and they wanted to take down a house and put two houses on a lot, and it was a business transaction. And the board recommended that, no, you need to have a legal lot here. This is a parking lot. This is exactly the same situation. So I would be less inclined to allow this to have a 50-foot wide lot. 80-foot is definitely preferable just on that one particular thing, because I think it would have a substantial impact. It also may or may not mitigate some other impacts of this project on the community because it would move the lot line as well.
Theoretically, there's nothing stopping them if this was approved without 33 year from now. Comes back and saying, now we want to pay 33. I think it make another.
No, I don't think they can do that.
I guess they could, but they will sometimes run into segmented seeker review, which can get them in trouble. If it's too close to the existing proposal, like the timeline's too close and it looked like they were doing it all along and they just withheld that piece, it's called segmented review and they're not supposed to do that. But like 10 years from now, it would be far enough away that they could come in and say, we still need more parking and we're going to take 33 down now. Hopefully by then we would have adjusted our zoning lines to be more appropriate, possibly.
They could possibly own 41 by then too.
It is this like, and we struggled with this one before, and Clark and I think talk about this a lot too. I mean, it is a slippery slope. The existing single family home, or it's actually 2-family home that is the absolute closest to the parking lot. It is very close to the parking lot. Like in some ways you kind of like, okay, I think the old owner was Fusillo had a pre-existing deal with the owner of that building that when one of them died or something, that building would go because it's so close to that parking lot. But if you bring the parking lot so close to another house, you're just right. I mean, you need to do something because I mean, part of the reason that home, I think part of the reason the planning board is okay with that home coming down is it's surrounded by a parking lot. I mean, it's a difficult spot.
Well, it's interesting, this project, because when Fusillo owned it, the parking lot on the left, if you could just throw up the, I'm looking at the one that has the Google map superimposed on it.
The red line one.
No, page 39 on the back.
Yeah, it has the red line
Oh, it does.
because that's the actual.
Page 39. Yeah. It's back. It's kind of interesting. It's reversed. Anyway, so originally the dealership did not utilize the lot over on the left-hand side or the right-hand side of that. It was a paved cleared area. It was sort of in disrepair, but it was vacant. There had been something there before. And they came before the board and they wanted to utilize that spot. And that's how that spot got put in there. And that was a long time ago. That was probably 20 years ago, 15, 20 years ago. The refurbishing thing, that was not there originally. And, part of it was at the time, we were concerned about that as well, that parking lot there as well. But the board did approve that. And I think part of the reason why the board felt okay with that at the time was it was on State Street. Yeah.
Oops. So for just the visual, This is the Kia. You can see how crammed in that parking. This is the single or the multifamily home that they're proposing to take down.
Mhm.
And then 25 is the vacant lot, which is mostly here where this lawn is and the trees. And then 33 is this guy right here. So the original proposal basically brings the new lot line almost up to this driveway. When you go to the 80-foot proposal, you're actually basically where this Norway spruce is. So you're definitely giving that home a lot more space. This is about 80 feet. The Norway spruce you can see on the thing. The 50 feet is almost right along that driveway. If you were to recommend that the lot line adjustment had many negative impacts, I think one of the things that you would be saying is that keeping it at 80, protects trees, buffers the home from the business, that kind of thing. Whereas bringing the line all the way to the driveway could potentially puts that house in the same situation that 17 is in, which is very close to the parking lot.
Yeah, I also think it sets a precedent that you can adjust a lot line to accommodate a business activity that's non-conforming. And generally, I don't think the town wants to get in the habit of doing
It also, I also just wanted to, I mean, it was stated in the other notes, but I mean, if the residents can already have the light, have, so much light already, that is done by the original parking lot, I can only imagine it's gonna be, lit up like Christmas tree back there with, that whole other lot, and also the sound, right? Like that makes, trying to, that, I don't know about resale of your home, but just like that's not what you purchased your home for, but I don't think it would be very disruptive to hear a speaker all day saying, trying to find a car or whatever it is. I know I enjoy the quiet of my own home.
When I read the packet yesterday, Laura, it mentioned somebody came and spoke about this at one of the other town boards. Where was that person from?
That's here in the single family home across from South Fagan.
I assume they were not in favor of this, from what I read.
No. They have a lot of existing issues with the Kia dealership that they are afraid of would get worse with the parking lot.
Her comments are there in page 32 of the packet towards the bottom.
So Laura,
She also wants the trees to be kept, especially the Norway spruce. She sees birds of prey in there, a bald eagle once. So
Laura, before I move off this picture, the asphalt spot that is beyond the parking lot,
this spot here,
yes, what
that
is
is
that?
her private property.
That's her.
In
private
the
property.
notes, you can see when she said that she's concerned that the cars turn around on her private property. That's this area here.
Okay.
And if you actually listen to the minutes, she says this where you see these like concrete Jersey barriers, that was when the old person owned it. She said those barriers aren't there anymore. He took them away with him when he sold the property to her. So it's pretty open, and she does feel like that's her driveway, and people come in and turn around in it, which is very frustrating to her. Yeah, well, the old owner, you can see, I think this is the foundation of the garage they were going to build, but the old owner was a contractor, so he had the equipment to be able to do that. This is just a mom with kids. She's a nurse, so she doesn't have the ability to pick up the concrete Jersey barriers. Yeah.
In their sketch, the updated sketch plan with the double parking, they showed a different sketch for the the 50 feet and 80 feet. So they only reduce the 80 to 50 for the back end and
You're right.
it'll tilt it. So which one do they want?
So they do tilt it. We measure 80 feet at the setback line. So even though it tilts backward, this lot is compliant with our code. The other types of measurements we have in our code for a single family home in the R2 zoning district are 9,000 square feet. Even tilting the line, it still meets 9,000 square feet. So it's bigger than actually a lot of lots in Old Niskuna. And the depth is okay. So even though they're tilting it, the way they have it on there does not need an area variance. It would be considered an 80-foot wide lot, even though it tapers to the back and it's not
Mhm.
fully 80 feet in the back.
Right. But then later they wanted the line to be parallel to make the front.
Oh, when they're
50
doing their parking, yes. In this one, they do have it parallel. They are not proposing this one. Oops, sorry. They're not proposing this one at all where it's 80 feet all the way back.
Right, that's
They
good.
feel like they lose too much parking with that one.
Oh, okay, all right, that's good to know. because
It's this tilted one is the one that they are asking. This one doesn't need a variance. It's 80 feet at the front and it tilts back.
But then for the last picture, they show the one that's parallel and then that one has a note for the shed to be removed.
Correct. Yeah. So I think they'd probably remove that shed under any of the I walked the site with the planning board. It's very odd.
Mm.
The shed is actually just sitting on the driveway and it almost looks like a piece of an other house that they brought. So probably that shed is going away no matter
Mhm.
what.
Either one.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Which shed is that?
But the shed has to be removed in the 50-foot wide
Yeah.
one. Yeah, so let me do it. This is the shed right here. It's
Okay.
thinking. Even in this proposal, it's too close to the lot line. They probably have to take it down. It's funny. It's like somebody took the top off of a fancy barn and brought it to the end of the driveway. Put a floor on it. I mean, I would use it, but they're probably not going to keep it.
Okay, so, I'd like to move on to the EAF, the first one, and we can talk about that. But what I'd like to do is I would like to sort of, not make a motion, but recommend that the 80-foot lot line be maintained, independent of the project. So what I'm doing is I'm proposing just a non-binding, nothing to do with the project, just a feeling of the board that 80-foot should be maintained. So does somebody want to agree or disagree, or is that a general consensus of the board?
So Dart, just for extra clarity,
Yeah,
you're saying that the lot line adjustment only go from 100 feet to 80 feet instead of
independent.
100 feet to 50?
independent of the project, just and we can make a declaration next meeting, but I do think it's helpful that this board provide at least some guidance here, because the planning board has suggested the 80 feet. The architectural review board suggested 80 feet on this thing. So I guess, are we comfortable saying 80 feet on this?
Yeah, I agree with you. Although that one doesn't fall in the R2 zoning, but I feel that we can use that as a guideline.
Ellen?
The minimum.
Ellen, you, I think, disagree with that. Do you disagree with that? You would like to see, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I interpreted what you originally said is you don't want to move the lot line at all. That. Yeah. Yes. if you say what you want, I'm not,
I'm sorry, Dar, we couldn't hear Ellen. Could you repeat that, please?
I didn't really say anything. I just,
Oh, okay.
I just mumbled, trying to reiterate that it was originally so the lot line is currently 100. The original was 50. Our proposal is 80, but I think that I'm going to just stick with my 100.
okay, that's fine. And that's perfectly fine. I'm not meaning to put you on the spot. I just want to make sure that we have anybody else have a comment about this that they would like to make?
And so the logic of the 80 feet is to ensure that there's a buffer should anything
Well,
happen on this line.
actually, my reasoning behind this goes back to what I said before. It sets a precedent.
Right.
And that's my decision is based just on the precedent. Like we should not be moving lot lines to make non-conforming lots.
Yeah, it would be allowed regardless of a special use permit for them to shift that lot from 100 to 80 because they're not violating any zoning code. They do kind of have the right to do that. They do not have the right to go to 50 feet. That's why they had to go to the zoning. That's why they would have to go to the zoning board. They have to show the zoning board that they have a hardship, and that they cannot comply with the zoning and that they want this lot to be 50 feet. I personally think that is a difficult case to bring to the zoning board with a vacant lot. It is tied to the special use permit. But when you're typically adjusting a lot with a line with a vacant lot, kind of regardless of what the plans are for it in the future, the zoning board is typically going to be like, well, of course you have alternatives. You haven't built it yet, so meet the code. But I mean, they could balance a lot of factors. I don't know exactly what the zoning board would say. But in this case, they're asking to go to 50. They're saying, I can't meet the zoning code here. I want to push this lot closer to the building than is allowed by our code. And like Chairman Strayer is saying, he thinks that's a terrible precedence. Like we shouldn't be flexing the zoning code to allow a line to encroach closer to a single family home for the benefit of a business pushing its parking lot in. You do have to do a seeker determination on that lot line adjustment, but you don't have to do it today. You could give the developer feedback, which he says that he always appreciates. He likes the upfront, like if you've got a problem, let him know so he can think about it. So it makes a lot of sense to me if you as a board just wanted to make a recommendation to the planning board today that you see a lot of issues with the variance and you wouldn't recommend it.
You articulated what I was trying to get to, with much more clarity. So are we okay making that recommendation?
I'm okay with that, yes.
Yeah, Laura, didn't you deny that on May 14th?
Yes, so it does get denied because the 50 feet does not meet code.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And what they do is they say, okay, we see your denial, Madam Planner, and we're still going to go to the zoning board and ask for 50 feet. And that's when the zoning board can say, I do not have the ability to waive the code, but the zoning board can say, all right, you've brought enough factors to our attention that we feel that the, strict application of the zoning code on this property doesn't need to occur. So you can have your 50 feet, or the zoning board says it's a vacant lot and you can make it 80 and they deny it. It's kind of up to the zoning board. They have their 5 criteria that they look at. We don't have the denial yet for you to look at. We probably would have the denial by July, so that could help you with your seeker recommendation. But yeah, we don't see a whole lot of them going to the zoning board, but what Dart said is true. We did have major issues with the Pierce Road, even though it was only a 5-foot variance on each lot, because the variances were creating negative impacts to the community. And when somebody's asking for variance, it's not as of right. They cannot do it. So why are you asking for that variance,
Yeah, I think the reason why it's important for us to at least make that recommendation is because it at least shows the applicant where our head is on that component.
Mhm.
Yep. Okay, good. So let's move to the project, the bigger project. And Laura, you suggested going through questions. Why don't we just sort of go through questions to help us guide the discussion? We will not, what I'd like to do is not evaluate the impact at this point, but just discuss each element of this.
Yeah, just
And-
so that we're starting to flush out where
Yeah,
we're at with
yeah.
the environmental
So
impact.
point of clarification, Chairman.
Yeah,
So as we go through the questions, like, do we keep the 50 feet in our heads or do we keep the 80 feet? So we should keep the 80 feet, like, what should we keep in our head?
A really good question.
good question. I think you have to think of the 50 feet. Because that is the
Application.
applicant of record. That's the application of record. So we have to speak to that. But I think what I would recommend or suggest we do is we just identify issues under each of these and not make a determination of the severity of that.
Yeah. So will the proposed action create a material conflict with an adopted land use plan or zoning regulation? And I believe I should pull up our last findings, but I believe in our findings, we felt strongly that the comprehensive plan was trying to protect the residential neighborhoods along State Street.
Yeah.
So in the past, we found that removing the single family homes was in conflict. This is obviously only one instead of two, but that's where that question is coming in.
Laura, didn't you say even though it's a single physical
I am using the assessor's data to say that. I did not hear from the applicant, the owner of the home, that it's a multifamily, but it is assessed as a multifamily. So typically, if it's been assessed as a multifamily for a long amount of time, if a single family was living there, it's assessed higher as a multifamily. So typically, if it wasn't a multifamily, someone at some point would have agreed to that and changed the classification. But I don't have for a fact, like I don't know that there's two entrances or how it works as a multifamily. It is assessed as a multifamily. Mhm.
Theoretically, 25 is a full lot, right?
25 is a full vacant lot.
So
Good-
in theory, if someone put a house there, you're taking up 3 potential residences.
Yeah, the funny thing about 25,
3 residence spaces are
yes, you
disappearing.
can put a single family home up there. Yeah. I think there's some provision in our code. It's interesting in commercial highway zoning, a single family home is not a permitted principal use. But I think if you dig into our zoning, you are allowed to put single family homes up in zonings that don't allow single family homes under certain provisions. And this lot may meet that provision. I'd have to double check that for you, but generally speaking, it's big enough now to fit a single family home on 25.
Or I'm pulling up the packet. You said that this was in.
Oh yeah, I could probably do that too. Our old findings.
Yeah.
It might be helpful for consistency to kind of build off of.
Yeah,
those
I think so.
ones. Not that it matters too much, but we were actually weighing this project and the taking down of the single family home on Ruffner Road at the same time. So the issue of taking down single family homes was very strong. Okay, so it's page. Nope. It is page 123 of our last month
Yeah,
packet.
I'm not gonna be able to pull it up.
I'll pull it up here. Sorry. I just didn't want you guys to have to watch me searching for it. And again, you know, this proposal with these findings was a more intense proposal, but similar. So our preliminary findings on the former proposal, which was to remove both single family homes and put a parking lot there, still had a lot of buffering and the sidewalks and things. was that paving around the remaining trees, I think we're bringing the asphalt pretty close to the trees, and this is still the case in some cases, but may harm their health. Excessive clearing of large healthy trees, we were concerned about that. Inability to incorporate pervious pavement. The demolition of any houses on South Bacon Ave would create a dangerous precedent, and lighting could create a nuisance for neighbors. So these are, the things that you guys, kind of talk about are similar to the findings that we found before. Specific to the questions, the impact on land, we found the removal of trees and other green space may lead to an increase in erosion off the site, impact on groundwater. We felt the area in question has a high water table. I think we heard that from one of the neighbors, which could be impacted by the change of vegetation and increase in impervious surfaces. For the impact on plants and animals, we were concerned that the flora and fauna may be impacted by the diminished open space in the area. The impact on open space and recreation, we felt the open space would be impacted as large stretches of land between parcels in question would be paved over. For the impact on transportation, we noted that this project actually has a good impact on that because they're proposing to build a sidewalk all the way to State Street. And they have an improved plan for the vehicle delivery and drop off. The impact on the noise, odor, and light, that there were concerns that the increased asphalt may exacerbate ambient temperatures. Ashok walked out, but I think that was something he brought up specifically. And then security lighting on the site, they pose an issue for neighbors in the area, backyards and things. For the impact on community plans, we noted the comprehensive plan's goals are to preserve residential nature of this corridor, and they are impacted by the destruction of the two houses on South Fagan Ave. And for community character, and actually, if you guys see the numbers that are associated with this, because we did the full EAF here, so anytime that it wasn't mentioned, we didn't tag that as having a impact, but I think this is pretty in line with what we still look at. But that we felt there was a large impact with the housing being lost. The housing is some of the most affordable in the entire town, and this project will triple the amount of residential houses adjacent to commercial properties in that area. So right now there's really the one house that's directly adjacent to the neighbors. By pulling that parking lot farther into the residential homes, you're hitting a lot more people's backyards. So we must have done the math and figured out that triples the amount of residential homes adjacent to the commercial property. So you guys had moved for a positive deck at that time, and then you made semi-normal notes for no pesticides. Encroachment on residential land was bad precedent. Removing two houses on South Fagan Ave would isolate the existing residential structures. You did note that you would feel more comfortable if one house were removed as opposed to two. You did note that the applicant had worked with the boards to decrease the parking quantities and increase the buffer space. They did do that last time in direct, to what you guys asked of them. And then you did note, which we talked about before, that a more invasive use under this zoning would be permissible without a special use permit. Very similar to what we were talking about. So I feel like we're kind of in line with our findings before.
So maybe on a go-forward basis, Laura, could you send that out
Oh, yeah.
to all the committee? And I think
It's in your packet.
it's in our current packet.
No, but I can
No.
email it to you. It's page 123 of the May packet.
I just want to make sure that everybody has it. But what I think what's here is the project has been changed. And the size has been reduced. Now, there are things that perhaps are better or perhaps the same. But what I would suggest that we do is each one of us look at this, and then when we come back to the meeting next time, get clear in your mind whether you think that the proposal that's proposed has mitigated some of these concerns, has not mitigated some of these concerns, or something else you would like to see. Because I think we can go through, but we just repeat.
Yeah, I think that would be good. Like, we can tell the planning board that we really don't recommend the area variance. I think it's good for them to
Yeah.
know where our heads are. And then, we can just let them know that we're reviewing this our preliminary findings from 2022. And, you know, we're going to see how the change proposal impacts those findings.
I think that's the best way forward. Ashok, you want to say something?
I agree. So finish your thought. I just had a.
No, I'm done.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Regarding the ownership of the houses that the one house that is demolished, the one house could be demolished, the one house that is not slated to be demolished. So the applicant owns both of those houses. Is that correct?
Yeah, currently they purchased and own 17, 25, and 33 in their entirety.
So if one of the houses is not going to be demolished, would it re-enter the housing stock?
Yeah, the planning board has asked them that question, and I'm just paraphrasing their answer because they're not in the room. They have stated that there's a potential that it would just go back on the market and they would just sell it to a single family home after they completed the parking, so that the person who is buying the home would essentially know what they're getting, right? So it wouldn't be like they'd sell it and then put the parking lot up. They would build the parking lot and then put the single family home on the market. The other thing they said is they may hold on to the house and use it as housing for one of their employees if they so choose, so they could like rent it as a perk. But in either case, they have said that they would use it as a single family home, which
But they're under no obligation to do so.
if they were going to change the use, because the current use is a single family home, if they were going to change the use, it would have to go to the planning board for a tenant use change type of thing. They could, though, within the zoning, for instance, change it from a single family home to an office. It would have to go through site plan. Planning board could work on it, but the zoning there does allow for the use to change like that. Well, and
Not-
I
there's
mean,
no guarantee that.
he has said to the planning board that they would not do that. The planning board could theoretically put a condition on it too, because it's part of the proposal, that it could only be used as a single family home. They could certainly do something like that. If it stands vacant, then they, under our new code, have to start registering it vacant and the fees increase. So if it stayed vacant for too many years, they'd be literally paying the town thousands of dollars to maintain its vacancy. So hopefully that would dissuade that use as well. But I mean, you could, it's costly to keep a vacant home like that in the town of Niskuna at some point, but you could.
In the past, we have put conditions on recommendations.
Yeah, I guess what I'm thinking is, I mean, I think this is wonderful, what we've done already. And I agree with that, but just what concerns me is that there might be a business case where holding on to it might be worth it, especially if you can wind up with that whole side of the block at some point. So they may, I am concerned that might be part of their business plan, long-term business plan, would be basically the elimination of a residential neighborhood in favor of a single business.
Yeah, like they would hold it and rent it out for a while and then
Yeah.
try and purchase the home next door too, and then eventually
I think
go.
we've seen that around here, right? It wasn't, or I feel like that's similar to what the stuff around CVS.
CVS, the CVS had the same owner, Mr. Tentor, owned them for a long time. They were almost all rented. Yeah.
So given the previous reasons and the recommendations, I think we still share a lot of these concerns, and especially the major ones like demolition of any houses.
Yeah,
right.
I
With
think
the,
that's fair to say.
yeah, could create a dangerous precedent. And then the business hasn't addressed the main concerns the committee has. So I think we can move forward with.
Yeah, we could give the planning board the feedback that
Mhm.
we still share a lot of these
Yeah.
concerns. Like we could tailor this a little more at the next meeting, but we could let them know that we share many of the concerns from these findings.
So the question is, is the next meeting, would we be looking to make a recommendation on the first EAF?
So thankfully, no.
Okay,
The next meeting, if the applicant chooses to go forward with the 50-foot area variance, you would need to do the area variance recommendation to the
Okay.
zoning board, which you guys kind of already kind of weighed in, but you'd want to bring to that meeting your reasons and your, like, to flush out the issues that you have with the line changing.
Yep.
There's a possibility, though, when they bring that to the planning board, if the planning board is willing to work with them on not needing an area variance, that may just get pulled. And so you may not even have to do it. It's another reason probably to wait until July. But yeah, the next meeting, I would say be prepared for the lot line adjustment, which does have kind of a different set of criteria right now for you guys. And then we can continue to work through the site plan and special use permit. Once we kind of know where that line falls, that'll
Okay.
be easier, like, because Ashok's point, like, it's only 30 feet, but it may make a difference in what you guys are recommending, and it may not. They may be the same no matter what, but it'd be good to know what the boundaries were before you guys did the secret determination. And that's going to the town board again, because the town board does the special use permit.
So
okay, go ahead.
So I think that's their original plan, right? So that's why in the colored photo, they had the line already drawn there.
The-
Although last time you said it should be next to the parking lot, but they had the line already.
The original plan does have the line. So this is the very original one that your findings were on. This completely wipes out the 33 South Bacon Ave driveway. This is the only residential home then between this parking lot, and then that's that commercial building you're asking about, Dan, which is in the town of Colony. So now you're at the squishing this parking lot back. The question is, how far back, if at all?
Okay, any more discussion on this project? Okay, why don't we move on to the discussion items? So Laura, could you update us on the GE patio
Mhm.
and then what's going on with the Momentum?
Yeah. So I just wanted to let you guys know you did review the GE Renova patio with your comments, went to the planning board and it was approved. So they're working through their building permit process now to build their patio and their guard shack. There's some upcoming planning projects that you haven't necessarily seen. Momentive, which took over for SI Group. So Momentive is the one that, is kind of right as you're going down the hill towards the Rexford Bridge on the right, has that fence. They moved in, and when they decided to buy the building, they did feel like the labs were kind of old. And so, as part of their phasing project to make this their headquarters forever, hopefully, they are proposing to remove some of the existing building, to demolish that, and then they'll be doing a site plan to rebuild the offices. It looks like overall they'll be decreasing the building area, so decreasing the impervious space and consolidating the way that they build their labs. Right now, they sort of have 3 buildings that go between the north-south buildings, and they'd be planning to demolish those 3 sort of cross sections and just putting one there. So right now, the demolition is going forward. Demolition is pretty simple, but I just wanted to give you guys an update. After the demolition, they will be coming to you to look at the new building of the new offices. So that'll be something that you might hear about, and then you'll see when the new building comes through.
Laura, quickly, they have a pretty big sized lawn area in front of their buildings. Like, do you think they may be open to a pesticide free LOMO initiatives or things of that nature?
So I think so. I think Clark actually reached out to them at some point and was talking to them. They are very open. You will get that chance to have that conversation with them. I know we've talked about them before as kind of a player that we'd like to talk to about the pesticide free. Yeah, they have a big lawn.
What is with the 1748 Union Street and 14?
Okay, yeah, so 1748 Union Street, it's basically at the end of Van Antwerp. If you're driving down the end of Van Antwerp, right across the street, there used to be a building there that I think looked very historical, that got demolished recently, right next to the bank. And they're proposing to make that into a parking lot. It is not allowed to be a parking lot. In Niskayuna, a parking lot is not an allowable permitted principal use. So they need a use variance. Just putting that on your radar. You may only have one meeting to really look at that because of the timeline for them going to the zoning board. Again, use variance, you would need to make a recommendation to the zoning board. So when you're driving down Union Street, just take a look and think about what makes sense there. It's right now kind of it's not a hole in the ground, but they took that building down, so it's just kind of a flattened area. So you can see, and they're just proposing to basically pave that over and make it a parking lot.
Parking lot for who?
The bank. The bank is in the city of Schenectady.
The credit union?
Yes.
The one
And
on the
the-
corner.
Right on the corner. Yeah. This building, that's probably a good way to look at it. I mean, probably on Google Earth, you can
Yeah,
still see this
You can
building.
still see the building. on
Yeah,
Google.
I liked it. So that building was a mixed use building. It had an office on the bottom and an apartment on the top. It
It has quite a bit of paved in front of it, and then the house is far set back.
correct. So they took it down. It had a lot of issues. It had some health and safety issues. That's how it was able to get the building permit.
Oh, so they already took down the.
Yeah, oh yeah, that building's gone.
Who owns that lot?
I believe the bank does. So this is the bank right here. This is the building that's gone. They're talking about like taking this white picket fence down and connecting these two things so that this is the parking lot, like for the bank.
So this came up once before.
Yeah, it has. It has.
Where someone wanted to buy the bank and take down the house to make a parking lot.
Oh, at one point they wanted to put a Chick-fil-A where the bank was and make.
Yeah,
the parking
there was
lot.
another use there,
Yeah.
but
Mhm.
this is the second time this has come up.
Saying the bank is Schenectady and that house is in.
Yeah, the line goes actually right through where that fence is. We're this house side, and the bank is wholly in the city of Schenectady. Yep. So that one's coming. We do have a fair amount of input in the comprehensive plan on Upper Union Street. Most of it revolves around walkability and landscaping and aesthetics. So some of the feedback that we've had before when they were trying to make this into a parking lot is like, could you put something there along the street to make it more lively and go with the, aesthetics?
In
So-
fact, one of the issues that came up is when the Albany Med building went in up Upper Union Street.
Mhm.
One of the proposals had the parking lot in the front. And that disrupted the streetscape.
Mhm.
So we actually recommended that the parking lot go on the sides and behind it.
Yeah, and that ended up working out pretty good because they share it with St. Cattery,
Yeah.
so that anytime you're building less parking spots in the world, it's probably better. Mostly.
Yeah, another theme of comments was Upper Union Street lacks dining or entertainment.
In the Niskayuna side, it's
Yeah.
actually mostly all in the city of Schenectady. So
Yeah.
yeah, we do kind of want to draw that up into our side to make that
Mhm.
walkability and
So-
make
so
that
this would be
streetscape
a perfect.
place to put in. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Could
But they're not allowed to have it just as a parking lot. I mean,
yeah.
it's not allowed. That's a use variance there on a vacant lot is again very tough. But vacant plus variance is typically a very difficult sell to the zoning board, but they're submitted to the planning board, but they didn't come in time for me to get them on the CAC packet. They may end up having the July zoning board meeting though, which would only give you guys one meeting to make a recommendation. So I just want you guys to be getting the thoughts in your head. So in case you have to do a quick turnaround. And then the other one is the old Stewart's on Consul Road. Many of you may have heard, that Stewart's decided to leave Niskayuna. It's a very small and constrained site. It is pre-existing non-conforming. The zoning is residential, but that Stewart's has been there prior to 1971. And I believe when I was looking, it's been a Stewart's forever, but it did have gas pumps at some point. My computer does not want to be my friend today. Okay, so here it is. Yeah, this
That's
is
a busy, that's a,
Console and Ferris, I think.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's a busy Stewart's.
I don't think it left for lack of business. I
No.
think the Stewart's model is to upgrade the building and they just couldn't get any adjacent land, so they left. So the neighbors are a little sad. It could go, because it's pre-existing non-conforming, it could go retail to retail, and the town doesn't have any ability to distinguish between retail necessarily unless there's a school nearby. So you can have a variety of retail in a retail store. So what's being proposed for there now is a bakery with some dining down options and some takeout options. Probably welcome in the community, not welcome in the zoning. So the zoning right now is residential. It could go retail to retail. Our code does not allow you to go from one non-conforming use to another. You can only go from a non-conforming to a conforming. So even if we all love the idea of a bakery, it requires a use variance. And the other thing that you have to think of with the use variance is that a bakery may be, I think, appropriate. When we went through the comprehensive plan and people were talking about the kind of commercial they like to see, they mentioned they'd like to see local owned, walkable spaces at the sort of commercial nodes. But once it turns into a bakery restaurant, any bakery restaurant could theoretically go there then, because the bakery restaurant use would be allowed. It doesn't go by owner. So it may still be, it's hard to get a use variance, but pre-existing non-conforming lots have a much better chance at going for a use variance than a vacant lot.
So I have a question about that.
Yeah,
So do they serve ice cream in there and people sit down?
yeah, they do. We still consider them a retail convenience store though, but that is true. There's so my Girl Scouts sell cookies there. It's a super nice
Okay.
Stewart's, and yeah, they do have a spot for ice cream. And yeah, the zoning in 1971 was overlaid on existing uses. It happened in a variety of places. If you were to just take this corner and say, okay, but this corner will be residential, it's like spot zoning, and you can't really do that. So it just becomes a pre-existing zoning.
There have been uses though where it goes out of use for X amount of time and then that's it.
Yeah.
I'm thinking Jackson's on Route 7.
I don't know. Maybe. Yeah. Yeah. These ones, they register with us every year, just like Harry's. So they register with us every year. We keep track of them. We know that they don't comply with the zoning and they let us know that they're open for business. So that you'll see this come forward. It's got a plan. It's an entirely different use variance request from the parking lot, but it's still a use variance request. So you'll have to weigh the same criteria and then just be ready to think about what the impacts are to the neighborhood there.
Quick question on this. It's zoned residential.
Yeah.
So in theory, Stewart's could sell that, just put it up, for sale. And someone could come in, buy it and put up a house, put up an apartment, put up the house. Family
So-
house.
One of the things, the use variance criteria are kind of like, can the benefit be achieved by any other means? Is it self-created? What's the, what are the impacts on the neighborhood? What are the environmental impacts? So when you think about, can that be converted into a single family home? Anything's possible, but it did have gas tanks, so you would have to remediate the soil probably. The cost of demolishing that building is very, very high, and then you'd get no return, right? Because you're just building a single family home. So they can sometimes show, like with dollars and cents, that it's essentially impossible to take the site and turn it into a single family home. So then should, it's allowed to be retail if they wanted to, have it sell. I guess though Stewart's does not allow another convenience store to go in after it because it can control that. So it couldn't go to like, Libby's or something by the sale. Yeah, which they can do. Yeah. And then but I mean, you see a number of things because Stewart's does this, I mean, all throughout the Capital District, right? Sometimes they'll just go across the street and build the bigger Stewart's and then leave the old Stewart's. I've seen them fairly regularly turn into smoke shops, which is like my least favorite thing in the world. Like in Charlton, I think it turned into an office, like a medical office, like emergent care. This one couldn't turn into an emergent care without a use variance either. The only thing you could see this do without a use variance is go to retail, another retail. So, I mean, it's definitely reasonable to look and think about, long term, is that a good use of that property? Because it's very unlikely that it could actually be converted. I think with dollars and cents, you could probably see that it's very unlikely for it to ever be converted back to a single family home. So that's just a thought there.
Thank you. That was helpful.
So because it's been there for so long, since 1971, before that, when can you, as it goes forward, if you're changing variances, can you put constraints on it or no?
The use variance process can have conditions as long as they directly relate to the variance.
Okay.
And zoning board can impose them. Typical things you see, which are sometimes a little questionable, is like if they had lighted signs, they can say that they have to be turned off at 8 p.m. because it's a residential neighborhood. You can't leave them on all night. They could say, maybe this is a slightly more intense use, so you need to do more buffering to the neighbors. They can do stuff like that. And then the planning board can work through that. The planning board itself can also still put conditions on it. So
if it went to a bakery, can they put constraints on it? Or I guess that's my question.
So they can, related to the site plan and the impact that they're trying to fix, essentially with the condition.
Okay.
They can't say it can only be a bakery.
Okay.
Would a gas station work?
No, because they removed the gas pumps. Bye, Simran. When they removed the gas pumps, they've been gone for longer than a year. So they wouldn't be able to put them back in because gas stations aren't allowed in the zoning. So they're just considered a retail convenience store at this point.
I think a situation like this came up when the restaurant at Mario's, where Mario's is now,
Oh, yeah.
that was a Japanese restaurant years ago, and then Mario's bought it. And then they came in to expand it, and it was non-conforming, and they worked with the town to put a bigger kitchen in the back.
They got a use variance for that.
They got use variance.
So sometimes these pre-existing non-conforming sites, because to Chuck's point, it's basically very, very difficult to bring it back to a single family home. Then you see what can work. But they have to prove that it can work too.
Yep. Any other questions on this? Okay, let's move on. Climate Smart Task Force items, the greenhouse gas emissions inventory. Do we have an update, Laura, on that?
Yeah, I feel like our July meeting might be getting a little long, but our consultant has finished the community greenhouse gas emission report. And part of that process is that they have to do that public presentation. And our deadline for submitting it to DEC, I believe, is July 11th, 15th. So we would need for them to do the community greenhouse gas emissions presentation at our next meeting.
Okay.
And we've started the process with the department heads to go over our government greenhouse gas emission plan and start coming up with our actions that we can incorporate with our government climate action plan. So that's still more internal. We're still meeting with the department heads. And so that's still a ways away. But the community one is done. It's very interesting. I can't actually wait for him to do the presentation. And because I will not be here on July 2nd, I'm asking that we move the meeting to July 9th so I can be here. But we can talk about that at the end.
Was he,
Go ahead.
was he able to get an answer to my,
When he was giving me the presentation the whole entire time, I was thinking to myself, I got to tell him to give us the numbers at the end of this presentation. And then I still forgot.
Okay.
But I will try and remember. If I don't, you can certainly ask him when he comes. Same guy.
Okay, natural resource inventory. Laura sent out a request for people to come up with a list of important items by priority. I don't know if you want to go through that. Have you summarized that yet, or? Oh, Dan.
yeah,
Oh, I'm sorry.
yeah, Daniel did that.
Yes.
Yes, yes, yes. So I emailed Daniel and Laura separately. Union College graduation is on the 15th, and until then, we had a little tight timeline. So after that, we should have a little bit of more time to work with Daniel. And one of the items is somebody needs to really read through the 200+ page report also. And when I started reading through it, only casually, I found a couple of places where there was like XXX and it says like see map on page 48, and there was actually no map on page 48. So the mistakes are minor, but before formally putting it, somebody needs to go through and correct it. And Daniel graciously said, if I may, that he has the bandwidth to go through that. So we will work together with Laura to read through that, fix it, and then like make a fancy page thing with the recommendations.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah,
I was just checking up on it.
I like the recommendations that Dan came up with. I don't disagree with any of them, but we will get all the typos and all the XXX things fixed, and we'll make that very like fancy looking. So
Yes.
we wouldn't give the town board a spreadsheet. Yeah, polished.
List version.
Yeah, but I thought that was really great. Thank you, Daniel.
Yeah, no, good. Thank you. And I did not mean to not recognize you.
Yeah, that work was done by Daniel.
Okay, it's been a long day. Ongoing initiatives, land preservation tools, there's a list there. We just need to get them written up. That's still an ongoing item. Pesticide outreach. Okay.
Laura and went through the website, tried to update the website. We did pesticide outreach, LOMO, the quiet, composting, wildlife corridors. We tried to get all that stuff on the website updated and make sure everything was put new people into the board and like that. So we're gonna do farmers market, quiet use Buena. I do have it too. I have the initiatives that I want to work on. They're just gonna be on the back burner for a little bit. So my thing that I'm trying to move forward is just the composting. It's just the composting initiative that will be done. I've written to the farmers market to see if we can do a composting initiative for a pilot program for residents to be able to bring their composting to the farmers market. So that and LOMO. So I think I might try to go to that meeting tomorrow morning to see if they were able to use the over the mowing schedule, the mowing path for the disc golf to make sure that that is all that's being mowed, and that our bird friends have all the ground nesting that they need to, and all of that is working in sync to see if we got all the dots connected.
I was over there this week, and it does appear that they're attempting to leave like a small part where they mow for a trail, and the rest is a little higher. I don't know the exact spot they're supposed to leave, but it's not uniform.
Okay, so
Which
yeah,
is what we want, right?
the idea is that they mow the path for people to be able to play disc golf, and that they leave the rest. But before, they didn't have the exact path of where people would throw the disc golf, so it wasn't the disc golfers who designed the field and the people that were mowing it didn't necessarily hadn't spoken, or like didn't have a plan in place. So, or it was, yeah, anyways.
So, Ellen, I wanted to add a couple of things related to that. You know, in addition to the clear biodiversity benefits of low mow, there's also an economic benefit. And, you know, that's the number that I've been trying to get from Laura's consultant. Like, the dollar amounts are not insignificant, because, you know, this is not like a home mower. These are big machines, difficult to maintain, not fuel efficient. So for every square foot you decide not to mow, that there is an economic benefit, and over the years those numbers can really add up. Yeah, and with winters sometimes getting shorter and then the growing season becoming longer, you know, the economic benefit is very real. And the second thing I wanted to quickly add is, Ellen, I don't know if you were in that email. There's a nice email from Roy Thornton about all the birds that were there, including two species of vulture, right here in Niskayuna. I was delighted to see that email. He has photos too.
Okay, so yes, I did see that email from him actually. So so for the Lomo, I went over and I got some more seeds from Nick at the from Schenectady, and I added them to our so he put down a lot of compost, and we didn't have enough seeds last year, so he graciously gave us a little bit more seed, so I planted those seeds. And I checked the other stuff that we had growing there. And then also to your point about Roy, he also had maybe 6 or 7 bluebird boxes that he then I matched him up with the Boy Scout troop, and they built them all. So we have pictures for that, which I'm trying to get out onto that onto the computer screen out there, and we're just working with that because apparently it's we need a little bit more background on that. So I don't know if that's all coherent or not, but if you have any questions, let me know.
You're trying to get us an appointment with the Saturday Farmers Market, right?
Yeah. So there we'll have, so I definitely, I'm doing composting with both, and then with Kayla from Cornell Cooperative Extension. And I'm also trying to get us just like maybe 1 or 2 dates for just usually the whole CAC. So when we go, we do all of our initiatives, and we just, So I haven't heard back yet, but I'm sure we will soon.
This is the tabling Saturday Farmers Market. To CAC table. The Historical Society sometimes has a table. The Complete Streets Committee sometimes has a table. So just to get the public aware of who we are and the work we do.
Go ahead, Dan. Did you have anything you wanted to say? Okay,
Oh,
go ahead.
I don't know if this is the correct time to discuss this. Like, I'm sorry, it's a little late in the day. Laura, I was talking about the email from Portia. Should we discuss that, or?
Sure. Yeah, the Portia is on the Schenectady County Environmental Action Coalition, which is basically like the Schenectady County version of a CAC. Yeah.
Mhm.
And she was saying that they were asking us for a new representative. I think Chelsea hasn't been able to make a lot of the meetings. But then Portia asked if there was an opening. So we may just be able to get Portia to come onto our committee and then she could be our SKIAC representative.
And just for the record, I serve on the SKIAC too, but I'm not there as the Niskayuna CAC representative of SKIAC. I'm there as a SKIAC, what is called an at-large member.
Oh, okay.
Okay, last item is sustainability checklist. I know that's an open item.
Actually, Mr. Chairman, can we go back to number 6?
We certainly can.
So I did get into this a little bit over the
Okay.
last month. I don't really know how to present it, but I did spend some time on it. There are dozens of state municipalities that have adopted specific legislation regarding limiting gas and diesel machines, particularly leaf blowers. This was a huge thing in Westchester County specifically. So I found a bunch of towns who initially adopted limited restrictions. In other words, you can't use it during the summer months, or these prohibit, May to September. And then those same towns tried it for a year or two and are now heading towards total bans. So I've got examples of that. I've got data if you want it. There's a statewide bill in the Senate prohibiting the use of them between May 1st and September 30th, but it's totally stalled in committee for like 3 years. So I don't think that's happening. But kind of in accordance with Niski's commitment to community conservation, I think my summary is adopting any kind of a town ordinance or recommending one would have a couple key benefits. And I don't know how this board, what the mechanism is for us to put that forth, but the main benefits are the reduction in noise pollution. I think that one's pretty obvious. They're noisy, they destroy peace. I did not realize how damaging they can be to hearing. Apparently, a single gas-powered blower can hit 115, anything over 85 decibels. And once you have damage to your ear, it doesn't regrow or regenerate. It's gone. So hearing impacts are also being studied for other health issues, connections with things like dementia. Air quality, about 30% of the fuel in the two-stroke engines don't completely combust. So they release smog, carbon monoxide. They also kick up all kinds of stuff on the ground. Dog waste, metals, little plastics, allergens. Those get breathed in. Those cause health problems. And then just the climate change factor, right? Anything we can do to reduce it. So seems like our current legislation here in town, all it's doing right now is it has a creation of any noise that exceeds 70 decibels between 7 and 9, but it does exempt garden maintenance devices. So they're totally allowed to do this.
100%. Yeah.
That's what I found out. I think it's a great idea. I think it's not like we're, doing something radical. It's very, it's not going to say standard, but it's common now. But again, I'm new. I don't know the mechanism in which the board would move
So
forward.
I have a question. Is your research in a form that you could send it out to the members of the board?
Yeah, it's a Word doc. I can
Okay.
send it.
So what I would recommend is, why don't you send it to
Sure.
everybody on the board and we can have a discussion. I don't know if it's going to be July.
Yeah. I
But we
mean,
could do that. And what I think we could do is, if the board want to move forward, we could bring it and socialize it with the town board.
so
Okay.
we're actually the ones that got the board to adopt the quiet Niskayuna.
Yeah.
So it's not binding, but the board did support the concept of trying to get people to switch to the electric lawn maintenance equipment, especially the leaf blowers. When they do the bans, does it ban the electric leaf blowers too? Or
No, it's gas and
yeah.
diesel powered.
So you'd just be banning the
Yep.
gas ones. People could still get the all electric ones. Yeah. And then so what we would typically do as a board is we would work to get like just, maybe one step beyond the flyer that we have now, which is just the Quiet Niskayuna flyer. just saying, hey, actually, we need to go beyond Quiet Niskuna now and do a legislative adoption. And then what we would typically do is come up with our best attempt at a code, which I can help you with.
Okay.
And then we recommend that to the town board through the Economic Development Committee.
Good to know. All right, I'll send it out.
But,
We'll
I
start
think-
there.
I think the first step, if we have something that we can give to the board, like a heads up, these are the issues. I think
Yeah.
that works.
I do know that the chairman of the Economic Development Committee, town board member Delarada, he has in other meetings expressed interest in next steps. So I
Great.
do think we do have some support. I don't know how many board members it is, but I do think it's worth pursuing. And our chairman has, said, show us what you have. So.
Good.
And
If I
actually
want
for.
to add one point.
Yeah, go ahead.
It would also be helpful to know what to do with those machine.
Oh yeah, like if you're recycling them.
Are you, so if you ban, they are just throwing them away, or is the town going to do something to?
Oh, like a collection day.
But then what's the town going to do?
You can recycle them.
I've seen the vast majority of these are
Landscapers,
landscape companies,
they're only landscape.
and they all have gas power.
Yes, and yes. So, I mean, all of them in Westchester, I mean, you have to, we definitely need a plan. So, because, whether it starts as a pilot program to say, okay, we're going to do this, the
Mhm.
certain months, in the certain hours, I think is probably the safest way to go forward. But
Yeah.
I mean, they use them all they use them all the time. I was coming over here today, so anyways.
Oh yeah, another thing that we've been trying to do is get our department to switch over to electric. So we got a $10,000 grant and we bought them a bunch of the equipment. But we have heard from them that they do eat up those batteries very quick. So it's been a little challenging. They bought some more batteries to try and make them work. But right now it has been a little challenging for our highway department. They're trying.
Yeah, if there's a company like recycling company or landscape company that we could work with to get some incentive, like bring a machine on this recycling day, we give you $10.
Yeah, something I really think that's a great idea. Yeah, we should add that in there.
No, right, yeah, just.
Well, it's still something. I feel like it's recognition that you're helping and you're giving something back.
If the town is not banned anyway.
Yeah.
then-
On number 8, Ellen might have said this a little bit, but when she came, we did work on the wildlife corridors part of the website. So if you go online, there is a wildlife corridors part of our website now. I did talk to Georgia today, right before the meeting, and she's reviewing it and she'll get some comments back to me. But we have added that component now to our website, which we talked about doing.
Oh, excellent.
Mhm.
Okay, do we have anything other to discuss? Go ahead, Ashok.
Laura mentioned possibly moving the meeting on.
Oh yeah, thanks, Ashok.
Yeah.
Could you guys look at your calendar? So July 2nd is the week of July 4th. I am out of town. You guys could have the meeting without me. It's not a big deal. I could actually still attend remote. No, I couldn't. I'm flying. You'd have to have the meeting without me, but that is okay. But if we move it to the 9th, the town boardroom is open and I like coming to this meeting. So
I'm also on vacation that week, so the 9th is much better for me.
it is. Okay. Then, okay. Yeah, I think you told that
Right,
to
yeah.
us, right? Yeah.
So it doesn't matter when we change the meeting. Yeah, the 9th works for me.
9th is better for me.
Okay, good. Then I will
think-
I will fix the agenda in perpetuity so it says June 4th. Sorry about that, you guys. And then the next meeting will be July 9th. And I'll just update that calendar there. Thank you for that. I get very excited about greenhouse gas emissions, so I want to be at the presentations.
Okay. Do we have any other business? Okay, I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Is anybody opposed? Okay, hearing none, we're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Laura.